Hi everyone. So starting from this video, we'll be looking at something that becomes very important when we want to work on slightly bigger projects in C. And when we go to bigger projects, we don't want all of our code to be in a single file. The reason is that that would make reading the code, maintaining the code, debugging the code very difficult. So in this video, we'll start trying to modularize our code, splitting it into different files, and then using code from different files to actually get our executable, our runnable program. So before I start, just make sure that you've watched the video on compilation process. If you haven't, go take a look at that. The link is in the description. So let's start off by writing just a printf here. This is going to be my main file, which will just contain the main function. It will not contain any other function. If I want any other functions, I'll write it in different files. So here I have a printf function which just prints the max of two numbers, let's say 4 and 5. And now I want to write this max function, but what I'll do is I'll create a new file right here, and let's save this as math functions.c. And now what I'll do is I'll write my max function right here, which takes two integers n1 and n2, and it just returns if n1 is greater than n2, then it should return n1, otherwise n2. So this is my max function now, and one way that I can get this max function in my main.c file is I could just write #include, and this time I won't be using the angular brackets, because the angular brackets mean that it should look for the file in a specific directory which is for header files only. So instead I'll use the double quotes, which mean that it should look in the current project directory. So wherever my main.c is, it will look for the mathfunctions.c file in the same directory. So I write mathfunctions.c right here, and let's try running this. So I do gcc main.c -o main.exe. That's what I want. And as you can see, it compiles correctly, and now I can run my main, and it does give me the max, which is 5. So this is correct. Now let's take a look at what really happened here. So when I do a #include, if you remember, it takes the entire contents of this file and puts it right here instead of this statement. So that's what's happening here, and we can confirm that by looking at our preprocessed file. So the way to do that is to do gcc -e main.c -o main.i. Main.i is my preprocessed file. So let's open that and scroll to the very bottom. So here, if you see, I have my entire max function which has been copied into my main file. So the disadvantage here is that I have to give you the mathfunctions.c file, which is the entire source code. It is my C code that I'm going to give you if you are the one writing the main the main file. And the disadvantage there is that I often want to hide my implementation. So I don't want to show you how I actually implemented the max function. That's something that I want to protect. And for that, I wouldn't prefer giving you my .c file. So let's get rid of this and look at the second way that I can use. So let's go back to our terminal, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to compile my math functions file. So I do gcc -c mathfunctions.c, and the output that I want is mathfunctions.o, which is an object file. And let's open this. If you remember, this is not going to be human readable. So now it's alright if I give you my .o file. It's okay for me to give you my mathfunctions.o file. Now we want to figure out a way to use this max functions from this object file. And the way I can do that is I can say gcc main.c and then mathfunctions.o. and the output that I want is main.exe. So let's go ahead and do that. And it does give me a warning right here. That's because there is no function prototype. That's what's missing. So if I add something like an int max, which takes an int and another int, so now it should not give me the warning. As you can see, it doesn't, and if I run my main file, it does give me 5 as the answer. But this isn't really a great way to do it, because you won't know what exactly is contained in the math functions file. So right now it was just one function, so we just added the function declaration here. But in actual scenarios, this math functions could contain 100 functions that you can use, and you don't want to add all of them right here. You probably don't even know what are the functions there. So when I just give you my object file, you won't know which functions does it contain, what are the names of those functions. So for example, I might have a GCD function in my math functions file, or I could have the same function with the name HCF. So you wouldn't know which one it is. So for that, we create these header files. So the .h files. So let's go ahead and create that. And let's save this as mathfunctions.h. This is my header file. And inside this header file, all I'm going to do is I'm going to say int max, which takes 2 ints. And now all I have to do is, instead of the prototype that I had written, I do a hash include mathfunctions.h. So this time it knows that there is a function called max because of these contents, the contents of the mathfunctions.h file. So it just picks up this whole thing and puts it in place of this hash include statement. And again, the procedure that we have to follow is the same. We first compile the math functions file, and then we use that to create our main file. And as you can see, it did not give me any warning, and I'm getting the correct answer here as well. Now when I want to modify my math functions file, I do an int min, let's say, and this again takes 2 integers, and it just returns the same thing with the difference that n1 should be less than or equal to n2. So now that I've added a min function, I can go back to my math functions.h file, and I can add another declaration, which is the min function. And now we can just use min here. The only thing I need to keep in mind is that if I just directly try to run this, try to compile the main file, the executable, that's going to give me an error, because the mathfunctions.o file that I created was with just the max function. Now I just added something there. I added the min function, so I need another compilation of the math functions file. So I do that first, and then I can do this. And if I run my main file, this time it gives me 4, so it's working correctly. So this is how you can create your own header files, and I hope you've also understood the advantage here. When I create a header file, I'm telling you here is a list of functions that are there in my in the object file that I've given you. So math functions contains 100 functions. Here is a list of all of them, and here are the parameters that you need to pass to those functions. Here are the return types of those functions. At the same time, I'm going to protect my implementation from you. So this is the correct way to do it. This is still missing something which we'll discuss in the next video. So I'll see you there.